Well, hey all, welcome to yet another episode of the Cory Trainer Higher Line podcast. This one is decades in the making. We've got a dude in the studio today who, when I mention his name to some of the best warriors that America has, they go, "Oh crap, you know that guy?" And now you will too. Mr. Cory Zillig, who spent 20 years in the SEAL teams, 13 of them with the most elite unit that the Navy has to offer, spending some of that time doing missions that he can't and won't talk about. But there's one that has become very famous that we'll touch on momentarily in today's podcast. But we're also going to be talking about a book that he is releasing. And it's not a tell-all. It's not some there I was type of a book. This is a book that I read to kind of get ready for this podcast. And I was amazed. Not only is this guy a great writer, but he shared some stuff that I wish somebody had told to me when I was in my teens and 20s. Let's dig right in with Special Operations veteran, Navy SEAL legend, Mr. Cory Zillig. Welcome to another episode of the Cory Trainer Higher Line podcast. Okay. Well, hey all. Welcome to yet another episode of the Higher Line podcast. Got a cool guy that has come in that, here's a fun story about Cory. Every time I meet like a super special Navy SEAL, it's true, and we get to talking and your name comes up, like if I'm like, "Oh, you come from this specialized place in the SEAL teams, have you ever met?" And they're like, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh shit, you know Cory?" And then they get very serious, and that's all. I mean, it's just like an instant change in demeanor.
I don't know how else to take that except a compliment. So
yeah, I mean, there's like, it's all of a sudden like they don't want to get in trouble and have to get back to you that they've been screwed. Now, I'm sure some of those guys that I know are going to hear this and be like, "Screw that, man. That's bullshit."
Honestly, I hope they say. I love all of it. I was kind of a hard ass at times when I was active duty. I'm a nice guy now, right? But hey, I worked hard to keep my reputation intact. I worked hard while I was in to maintain that, to get a good reputation and maintain it. So I'm glad that it's still intact.
I dig that. So Cory Zillig, come from the highest echelons of Navy Special Operations. You're a husband, a father, a yoga practitioner, now a purveyor of fine training at the site Firearms Training Center in Mount Carroll, Illinois.
Yes, sir.
What else are you?
I'm an author.
Oh, yeah. One of the things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. My book, 10 Attitudes, Primer for Developing a Warrior Spirit, is going to come out either later this year or early next year. Right now, the only thing that is holding me up from publication is my review with DOPSR, basically the government reviewing my book and clearing it, saying, "Hey, it's all
You're
good."
allowed to tell these stories. So I was able to read your advanced book that I thought was pretty awesome, which I want to talk about in the discussion today. But why don't we go back a little bit? So what'd you do in the Navy?
I was a SEAL for 20 years.
Okay.
I started out at SEAL Team 2. Spent a few years there, about 5 years there. Went from there to a training command. I was an East Coast guy, so I went to Tradet 2, went in Group 2, there at Little Creek, Virginia. From there, after spending about, maybe a year and a half to about 2 years as a trainer, training combat marksmanship, assault operations like CQB, close quarter battle, shipboarding, urban operations, and the like. After doing that, I went through selection at Development Group, and from there went to Red Squadron and basically was there through retirement. And in between, basically, I just wasn't in the squadron the whole time. There were a time where I jumped off and I was a selection and training instructor. So aside from going through Green Team, I went and also instructed it for a couple classes. And then when it about ready for me to punch and retire, I worked in our combat development directorate right before I left, working with industry, national laboratories, academia, basically developing, evaluating, and fielding new equipment, new gear.
So at that point, all the knowledge and experience in the previous 15, 18 years, then you're talking to the different entities that help provide products and services to the end user to say, we need this, that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How'd you like doing that versus the hands-on work?
I was,
I read your book, so I know what you said in the book.
yeah, we kind of, my wife and I kind of joke. Well, actually, I used to say this a lot where, there was a component, we called it N5, was the Combat Development Directorate. And I would say like, hey, N5 is where soldiers go to die, right? And it is kind of a soul suck because I was very much into my job. And although at the time, the wars were kind of like, they were kind of tapering off. Like all things battlefield started to get outweighed by a lot of things garrison, right? And if some of the audience doesn't know what that means, basically like it wasn't about combat anymore. It was about basically just being next to the flagpole, looking good. I was very fortunate, very privileged to have my timing in the military coincide with some very hot years in the war where that's all we cared about. All we cared about was deploying and going to the battle. That's the only thing that really mattered. Uniforms didn't matter. That was it. Battlefield proficiency, period. What's the enemy doing, period. So we can counter it. You know what I mean? Like we're continually learning in this loop. And it got to the point where as the war effort continued to drag on and on, it just wasn't fun anymore. You know what I mean? Like it just became this a different animal. So as I started to enter into that world and take a job in the Combat Development Directorate, it was good because I got to learn a lot. I do love learning new things. It's like what basically made that job very tolerable. But at the same time, it wasn't operating. And I think, I don't know, totally honest, did I leave a little bit early? I think I might have, right? I still had juice in the tank. I think I could have still done the job. But I made my decision, right? I made my decision and I decided.
You could have still done the job out as an assaulter.
Yeah.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 41.
Okay. There's a lot of guys in their physical prime. You don't heal as fast at 41 as 31 or 21, but
yeah, no, it's true.
Maybe you don't jump over as many things and skin your knees.
Yeah, you're a little less invincible, right, when you're that age. But still, I was still in great shape. I still had, there's a lot of guys.
That's about when I met you. And when I first met you, I didn't look at you and think this guy's invincible. But you're still a physical specimen. Now in your 50s, it's you're falling apart.
50s. I don't know. It kind of seems like you're accelerating.
He looks like a Greek god. He was just challenged me to a pull-up competition, and I thought, we're here for a podcast. None of this happened. I actually challenged him, but he wisely didn't do it.
I think you're also aging me a little bit because, like you say, I'm in my 50s. Well, I just turned 50 in May.
Okay, so are you in your 40s?
Well, I guess I just stepped through the threshold. I'm barely even in the room. I'm barely in the room of the 50s, right? So I just went past the threshold. So, no.
A little more backstory for the listeners, viewers. So Jeff Houston years ago called me up. Jeff's super stud Green Beret that I met through the internet. And I only bring this up because we oftentimes, like you guys are watching this or listening through the internet, right? We're not like on broadcast AM radio. And we often say like, F the internet, or it's just the internet, screw it, or, we get flippant about it. So I wouldn't even know you if it wasn't for the internet. So Jeff reached out to me years ago, and I got to be involved for a little bit with the program. I met Jack Carr and Joey Hahn, one of your other workmates, and you had just gotten out, I think, at the time, like months maybe. So that was about 10 years ago, give or take. And I've noticed in the decade I know you, like we'll lose touch for months or years as you're working on different stuff, and you've changed kind of a lot. You're pretty
Yeah,
zoned in those days.
I was.
And that was after you had tapered off too. So I can only imagine 5 years before that.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I did taper off a little bit. I think it's a good thing.
I don't mean in a bad way. I mean,
No,
it's evolving and changing.
It's not a bad thing. If a person says, "Man, I've never changed. I'm the same person as ever was," I almost feel sorry for them, right? Because it's like, hey, if you're the same person that you always were, like it just means there's no growth. It means you never went through anything that like affected you so much that you either A, decided to change for the better, or B, like it forced you to change for the better. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, I have changed quite a bit.
I just said to somebody today that was talking to me about some sales and marketing stuff. It's a little bit of a catchphrase for me. Nothing changes till you make it change. But shit does change. Like trees grow and rot and die, and if you don't take care of your house, it does not stay the same. It'll fall apart. So you did a lot to change, because I think you needed to kind of change gears. You talk about that in your book quite a bit. So I brought that up because some of the other guys that came from where you came from are very public, and a lot of people don't know your name. But then when I say your name to some of these more public figures, like I said, like I see a marked change in their behavior. Like you chose to be more ghost-like this last decade.
I did. I have no problem with guys telling their story. Quite honestly, I think more guys should tell their story. Myself, I was inspired by guys like that. Like I was inspired by stories to do what I did. I mean, obviously, and I write about this in the book, there is a calling that's attached to that. Some sort of like something that just like reaches deep into your soul, the hand of God. He's basically like throwing like this calling into you, but at the same time, you're feeding it with the stories that you're reading about combat, about these different operations, about these different units. Even I like reaching all the way back to ancient times. Like you read about Achilles, you read about Beowulf, you read about all these like really badass like warriors that just feed you, right? So I don't, our generation of warriors really in this modern era they have a story to tell. They should be allowed to tell that story without fear of retribution from their own brothers, right? It is. I can understand the hardline attitude, especially the one that I took when I was active duty, because I didn't understand what this world was like. I lived in a very like a vacuum of like special operations where things were moving so fast that I barely had time for the outside world. I didn't have a lot of friends that weren't like coworkers or teammates, and I isolated myself. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand this world really, because it is kind of a different world. So I struggled when I got out. Well, I say got out, but I retired. Right? It's not like I can get back in. If I tried to, they'd be like, "Nice try, you're fucking done." Right? But you
don't think you have any value in your 50s now?
I think I have a ton of value. It's just not the way the system's working, right? Like the way the system is, like once you retire, you're done, right?
Unless surely you get in your age, you could have stayed there and been in leadership management roles.
Yes, I also am, pretty candid about this in my book, that I only attained a certain level of leadership in the teams because honestly, I probably wasn't ready for it. Tactically, go ahead.
Say that again. You only achieved the level that you did?
Yes, I only achieved a certain level of leadership, or the level of leadership that I did in the teams, because I probably wasn't ready for the other, like the next steps. And I'm trying, I say that with a little bit of humility, because, honestly, like, I didn't do the job. To say that I could have and I would have crushed it and everything, like, that's just an assumption on my part, really, because I never did it, right?
I'd have been a fine thoracic surgeon.
There you go.
Right,
exactly.
Right,
Perfect example, right? So I capped out as an assault team leader. I still believe, that I would have been a great troop chief and beyond, but at the same time, I never did it.
I don't know which of these things you're allowed to talk about. I'm sure some of these things are common Navy stuff, but like assault team leader, troop chief, like what do these things mean to us non-Navy personnel?
Good point. Assault team leader. So in at development group, there's assault squadrons, there's assault troops, right? Within the assault troops, there are assault teams, right? And so each team has a team leader, right? And that's kind of like the real big first tactical step that an assaulter wants to get in leadership, and it takes them a good while to get there, right?
Of course, everybody can't be, because then everybody'd be an assault team leader, and
true.
Assault team non-leaders. Okay,
true. And so, and it's got to be hands down the funnest job ever in America. In the world, period. It was the best.
Really?
It was so fun. Yeah, so fun. I loved it. But so that is, in those troops, you have teams, you have assault team leaders, but you also have troop chiefs, which are in charge of the assault teams, and the recce teams, which are within that troop. And then above that, you'll have your squadron master chiefs, who are basically the highest enlisted leader of the assault squadron. That's kind of, without getting too deep into the weeds,
sure.
That's kind of how it's organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about, in your book, which I know some of that is not cleared, you talk about some of the things you did in that role?
I did, right? And so mainly I use references to reinforce the attitudes I talk about, right? Some of those stories were when I was up and coming, trying to become a team leader. Some of them are when I was a team leader. So I do pull on quite a few stories of my experience.
Interrupt you for 1 minute. The book is by no means that I was a Navy SEAL tell-all, and when I started reading it, I assumed it would not be. One, you told me what it was about, but you're not that kind of a person. But even the stories that you do tell are not war stories by any means.
No,
there are some stories that are in war, but it's not you saying. The ones that you tell are actually fairly open, pointing to maybe personal faults or failures.
To me, that's where I learned all my lessons, right? I seldom learned in successes, I learned in failures. I learned from failing and then getting back and correcting that, right? Correcting that issue. And, the book's called 10 Attitudes, a Primer for Developing a Warrior Spirit. And really, like, about the warrior spirit, like, that's really what, to rewind a little bit, like, there was my body and my mind failed me multiple times, especially during initial selections, like something like buds. And I believe that that's what selections are designed for, right? They want to break you. They want to break you in both mind and body, and they try to break you in spirit. And the people who get broken in spirit quit. And so that's like, so when my mind had turned to mush, when I couldn't feel my arms or my legs, I literally was just on autopilot. I was running on my spirit. I was running on this life spark that we all have inside of us. I didn't have this, a different mindset. Wasn't a better athlete than some other guys. I just would not stop. My spirit would not allow me to stop. I wanted something so bad. I wanted to fight for it, right? And that's really what having the warrior spirit is all about. It's about fighting for your best version of yourself. You have a dream, you have a calling that comes into your heart, placed either by God or just for some strong desire in your life, right? And you want to fight for it. And having that warrior spirit helps you attain that. Right? So it's kind of, yes. So I do draw a lot on my experiences in the military to reinforce that. Not to say, also it's a warrior spirit. I was a professional warrior for 20 years. So I use those to carry that message, but I also state implicitly that you don't have to be a professional warrior to have a warrior spirit. Everyone has, at some point in time in their life, a goal, an aim, something that they want to achieve. Higher, better version of themselves, something or some position, something, right? And in order to attain that, they've got to fight for it. It's a struggle to get there. Struggle for some people more than others, but hey, the struggle is always there. So it doesn't mean that you have to, hold this job as a professional warrior to have a warrior spirit. It just means that you have to be willing to fight for what you want in life, right? It's something that I believe that everyone has, right? That everybody is a warrior in their own right, because you're always fighting your own internal enemies, right? Fear, doubt, insecurity.
Or you're not.
Or you're not,
or
right?
You're not fighting.
Mediocrity, laziness, whatever they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that's inside you that's wanting to pull you down. Because as you're trying to pull yourself up and reach higher, there's always something inside you. It's like good and evil will always exist, right? There will always be an alpha and an omega, light and dark, good and evil. So if you're just going to capitulate and let that enemy have its way with you, then yeah, it's like you're broken in spirit. You need something to fight.
Did you think when you were in your 20s one day I'll write a book and tell people how to be a man? That's not what your intention was in the book, but that's what it is. That book is a here's the things that I found help me to be the man I am. I'm passing them on to you. Hopefully you find some value in it. That's what it is. It's like a dad or an uncle, talking to you. That's the way I read it. And being that you're significantly older than me, it totally fits.
How old are you?
I'm in my 40s. You're in your 50s.
Well played.
I think we're 15 months apart.
Okay.
My hair is looking like it's in the 60s, though.
Looking good. Salt and pepper looks good on you, Mickey. But
the dye you're using, I'd like you to send me the link.
Well, actually, my grandmother, she passed when she was 92, and she still had jet black hair.
Bennett's grandma was the same way.
Yeah. She never dyed it. Nothing.
That's cool.
My father, when he passed, he still had like no gray in his hair, a little bit probably here and there, maybe up here, but for the most part it was like mine. And then but his beard got full white, and mine's starting to get there. I probably should have shaved before this, but
looks good.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Thank you.
I didn't want to derail you from your point about the book. I said that it's you passing on some life experience.
Oh yeah, to answer your question, no, I didn't see myself in my 20s writing a book doing this. But one of the things that I did do, like I told you, I struggled when I retired, right? So when I struggled when I retired, I didn't know what it was. It was like I just didn't know. I had lost the key part of what I loved, right? Like, yes, it was part of it. It was solely part of my identity. Being a warrior, but I was equating my job with that warrior identity, right? And it's kind of one of the things I express in the book, that I was always a warrior, even before I became a professional one, and even today, right? So there was a little bit of a mistake on my part equating that profession to my identity as a warrior, but I did, right? But in order to get me through this tough time, this rut, which is about 5 years after, it took me about 5 years after I retired to really, get myself into a good place, in my opinion, was I had to go back to who I was before I became a SEAL, right? And I was a creative type. I love to draw. I love to write. I love creating things, right? And, that served me well in the SEAL teams, because that's what you're constantly doing. You're always creating. You have to be an extremely creative individual to be in special operations, because you have to innovate and create better than your adversary, or you're going to die, right? Because everyone's trying to come up with the most innovative way to kill each other, right? So those who create and innovate better than others are the ones who win the day, right? So it did serve me well, but when I lost that modality of being a professional warrior, I decided to get back into drawing, into writing. And then I wrote a novel, like a sci-fi novel, and just got into storytelling, right? And because I was writing, I was geeking out on different ways to train my writing. Okay, I love writing fiction, but you can't just stay in that one bubble, right? Like I had to figure out how to do other things, right? So let me try writing essays. Let me try writing nonfiction. So I started doing that. I wrote a few articles on Substack, and then I started compiling these ideas, and things started resonating. I'd write about them more on Substack, and I actually had a writing group that I was hosting, full of all just like, you know, former team guys, and we would have this. It was basically our training ground, like it was our kill house for writing, right? We would have like a session where we would submit some work, and then we would all read it and then debrief each other on what we thought.
That's
right?
cool.
And so one of the guys wrote a piece on Musashi, and one of my, I kind of like gave my critiques to him. But what it did was it inspired me to start reading the books that I had read before I became a SEAL. Like I read as a kid, like the Book of Five Rings, and then from Musashi, and then Budo Shoshinsu. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, but it was written by Daijoji Yuzan. It's like a primer for, from Bushido, right? And so all these books, I'm like rereading them. I'm like, oh, these are fucking timeless. These are gold. These are great. And they all had different meanings for me, right? Like you read them before you become a professional warrior. Yeah, they resonate, but they have different meaning. During, resonate, have different meaning. Afterwards, resonate, and even have another meaning, a deeper meaning, right? And so it kind of inspired me to start putting all these ideas, these essays that I wrote, and organize them in a way that I could communicate what was in here, but also communicate a message that I thought would be helpful, that I thought people needed to hear, right? So.
What kind of drawing do you do?
Just sketching, really, just number 2 pencil and
landscapes, trees.
Mainly like when I was younger, it was like a lot of like dark stuff, dude.
Oh, yeah.
like demons and fucking crazy stuff. But
really,
yeah. And, I thought I was fairly talented, like maybe not as talented as some guys that like I know a guy, fellow team guy by the name of Steve Otten, phenomenal artist, like phenomenal painter, phenomenal drawer, world-class sculptor. He sculpted a freestanding David, 7 foot tall, that stands at the ankles, right? Like it doesn't have any additional marble around the legs, like geometrically, like mathematically, you look at it and you're like, how did you just see this in a block of stone and it can stand, right? Like
that's fascinating. How long did it take him?
Good question. I don't know, but probably a little bit. He's pretty relentless, pretty fierce in his in his pursuit of things. I actually write about him in the book, High Standards. But he went to school at and Otter, forgive me if I fuck this up. He went to school at WashU for art, and one of his classmates had died in a drunk driving accident. She was hit, right, and she passed away, right, and they selected Otter to basically carve a sculpture for her in memorial, right? Like in memoriam. And so they bring him in. He's like, of course, I'll undertake this, challenge, this task, of course. And they're like, all right, well, they're assuming it's probably going to take him a year to do this. Her memorial is in 12 weeks. And he's like, so you want this ready for the memorial? They're like, I don't think you understand how long it takes to do a piece of work like that. It's going to take you a long time. And he's like, well, I think it should probably be done in time for her memorial, like 12 weeks. So, of course, he goes and finds some guy that allows him in there to help and apprentice a little bit. He already knew how to sculpt pretty decent. Like he was, trained in school, but goes into this guy's studio, finishes some works. Guy's like, wow, pretty good, right? So he selects this, the guy sells him a chunk of marble, right? And he apprenticed for about 4 weeks prior to starting on this sculpture for his classmate. And in 8 weeks, he finishes this sculpture. In 8 weeks. Wow. Like no sleep, like I say, just was relentless, crushing it. And it was all ready in time for the memorial. And it's wild that he's a unique individual and a one of a kind. Yeah, I love that guy.
That's cool. You you mentioned in your book, you just we bounced around a little bit here. You just mentioned your dad and his dark hair. Tell me about your dad a little bit. You mentioned a little bit about him in the book.
My dad was a freaking great guy, awesome dude. You know, we all find faults in our parents somehow, some way, you know, like, but, you know, my dad had few, right? Well, I'm biased, of course, right? But I consider my father a great parent, right? He was a great dad. He owned his own subcontracting company in Lincoln, Nebraska, that did rain gutters and siding. I worked for him when I was in high school, when I got out of high school, and up until I joined the Navy. And I do write about him in the book because my father was in Vietnam and he had a certain idea and what joining the military was like. And when I told him I had joined the military, he was pissed. He was not happy. His exact words were, "I pissed my life away," right? And so he didn't think that I made a positive choice in life. But then again, you know, he's just leveraging off his experiences in the late 60s and early 70s, right? And, but, you know, he came to understand that the military is a lot different now than it was back then. And then also, I didn't really give him any indication that I would make it, right? I knew that I wanted to be a SEAL. And I had a completely different life. I wasn't a star athlete. I wasn't this driven individual. I was actually the exact opposite. I was a freaking problem, man. I got into trouble all the time. I lost my way. I was an undisciplined quitter. Like, I really wasn't, you know, I was making poor choices.
Why do you think you were such a shithead with a nice dad like that?
My dad gave me the freedom to be who I needed to be when I needed to be it, right? And instead of some of the things that I used to get very upset at my father for, like the lack of this hard nose, like, you got to do this, and let me give you all these life lessons. I'm not quitting.
You were
doing
upset
all these
that
things.
he did not?
I was upset that, you know, like there was a time in my life that I was upset that he didn't give me that. Right?
So later in life, looking back,
Yeah.
you're like, damn it.
It was like I had to do this shit on my own, right? You know, but the fact is that my dad saw it differently. He saw that, you know, I needed the space and the freedom to figure it out on my own, whether or not that's, you know, whether that, I don't know, good, bad, or indifferent.
You
it
would
worked
have
for me.
parented you differently than what Dad did, but Dad, based on his life experience and what he knew of you as a young man, did it the way he did.
Honestly, I have no idea why he did it, if he even had a plan to do it that way, or if he was just too damn busy trying to put clothes on our back and feed us. And
that's a thing, right?
Right. So, honestly, like, one of the gifts that my father gave me and my family was stability, right? I never had to worry about anything. I never had to worry about an empty refrigerator. I never had to worry about, you know, like, not having stuff, right? Never had to worry about us getting kicked out of a house. Like, we had stability. We had a good home. My father worked really hard to give us that. So, you know, even though it wasn't a gift that you really see as one, you kind of see it later on in life when you become like your own, you know, like when you become a father yourself and a husband, you're like doing all these things. It's easy to get caught up in trying to provide the life that you want to provide for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, striking the balance is something we all want to do. But you know, my dad, whether he struck a balance or not, I appreciate what he did for us.
What was his name?
His name was Bill.
Bill? Good name. You sign up, you tell him I'm out, I'm not cutting any more siding, any more
rain gutters, really, yeah.
Mostly gutters?
Yeah.
So he did the siding, you just were...
No, actually my dad had a different crew that did siding. I was just doing all the gutters.
My ears are ringing right now sitting here from standing at the cut table cutting aluminum siding and vinyl siding.
Yeah.
If you guys have never done that, we're hearing protection, please. You told him you're leaving, you leave, but something else you talk about happened prior to that. You lost a friend.
Yeah. A good friend of mine, his name was Will Hinckley. We were like brothers. We were really, really close. everybody has problems. Suicide wasn't like teenage suicide wasn't a really big thing, and even teenage, like Will was 21 when it happened, but it was less prevalent back then.
Yeah,
than
I
it is
only
now,
knew a couple
right?
of kids. Yeah,
but yeah, Will had his own set of issues, and I don't know why or how or whatever. One day they just built up, and he made his decision, and that was that. And it hit me freaking hard because that was like
was he older than you?
Yeah, by like 2 years.
Okay.
So I got a job in a Chinese food restaurant, right?
Okay.
Like hanging rain gutters was my only gig, like I was trying to I was doing a lot of jobs, right? And so I was working at a Chinese food restaurant. I got this job. So initially because I was like freaking round eye, go work the cashier, you're not cooking, right? And so I'm working the cashier, I'm working for it. His brother, older brother Brian, hired me. And I didn't know Will, I never met him at the time. And I mostly worked with Brian. And then one night, Brian wasn't there. I had to work with Will. And Will, he was kind of an asshole. He was kind of an asshole. And like, we didn't like each other at first, but that's usually when the best friendships start. And, kind of opened up to each other. We started talking about like boxing, wrestling, martial arts. And before we know it, we're, smoking cigarettes in the food court during break, talking and like bullshitting, became really good friends. Eventually I continued to work there for a long time. I'd helped him at the restaurant. I actually became a cook too. So I was cooking at the Chinese food restaurant, that same one. We had a lot of, good times. Will and I, like, we would work, then we would go hang out for a while. After work, we would slice up like meat, get it all lined up for the slicer. We'd wrap it up, we'd put it in the freezer, then we'd go hang out for a while and then come back and then cut meat. And then after the meat was cut, chop vegetables. And we would sometimes
prepping stuff.
Yeah, like sometimes we'd be hang out till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just working, talking, smoking cigarettes, bullshitting. We had a good friendship. And then so when he died, that was really hard on me. And I didn't know why. I don't think anybody knew why. I had a tough time with it. The people around me didn't really know how to deal with me because every time they tried to offer like consolation, I'd push them away because I didn't know how to deal with it, and I wasn't opening up, and I just like push people away when they try to help me. So, kind of isolated myself. I was dating a girl for a while, and I basically she dumped me because I basically couldn't cope, right? And you can't blame her. She's young. She wants to go on with her freaking life. She wants to be with somebody who's like enjoying their life, and I wasn't at the time. So, that ended, and I just had a really tough year and a tough time. And so that was when I started looking at my life, going like, what the hell am I doing?
You live at home?
Yeah. And so I was like, what am I doing? Do I have any real interest? Do I have any real goals? Where am I going? Right? I'd never thought about my future whatsoever. It was just day by day. And so when I finally looked at myself really hard like that, I was like, okay, I'm going nowhere and nowhere fast. And because I was a little bit lost and still hurt from all the stuff that happened, I was like, I just looked to kind of run away, right? I wanted to run away and get out. But I still had this strong calling inside, that I wanted to join the military and be a professional warrior.
So before this tragedy happened in life, you had thought about that?
I was always gravitated towards violence, really. Did
you get in fistfights and shit as a kid?
Not a whole lot, man. Like, I really, for a person that had that proclivity, I was actually a pretty nice kid, right? I didn't really get into too much trouble. Trouble did find me, and I sought it out at times as well, but I really wasn't one of these guys who was just like that big of a problem. I just I enjoyed like martial arts. I enjoyed I grew up on Rambo, Commando,
sure.
Like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, like all the cool action movies. That was like, that era of action movies like fed this thing. Like, how cool would that be to be a freaking commando? Like, hell yeah. So when it came time to figure out what I want to do with my life, it was like, I'm going to do that. Just like on a whim, hey, I'm going to do that. And nothing about my demeanor or behavior or anything else would have told anybody that I would have made it, that would have survived in that arena. But hey, when God puts a calling into your heart and you follow through with it, like,
do it.
You do it.
I bet your dad later was proud that you.
Yeah, he was. You know, my dad was also the kind of guy that always like he would seldom say like, "Hey, I'm proud of you, son," right? But I felt it. Like he knew, like you definitely felt it, but he wouldn't necessarily say those exact words. But you knew he felt. You knew he felt.
Why did dads do that?
I don't know.
I try to tell my kids that not for no reason. I don't just call and say I'm proud of you, but like my son and his fiance just bought a house. You know, like they're doing all the stuff of life, and I'm proud of you, man. You're doing way better than I did at your age. You know, you've done well, probably because of my excellent fathering skills, which is a joke, not in spite of more, but it's interesting how dads do that. Did he tell you he loved you?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
not all the time. You know, like I said, I felt it more than he said it, but he did say it.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so no, he was a great father.
I'd be really concerned. I mean, there's the whole pride thing, but like what you did for a job, like, damn, I don't want my kid to die. That would be a juxtaposition for me.
Yeah. Does it enter my mind that my own son may decide one day to follow in my footsteps and choose a dangerous profession like this? Aside from that, he has told me that he wants to be a professional skydiver. So I'm like, okay. So, you know, at that point in time, you're like, okay,
that might be more dangerous per capita.
Yeah. Like, because you're always pushing the edge. Like, you always got to up your last stunt, right?
There's a book right there, Above All Else, that's about a famous skydiver. My brother knows that guy. He sailed into the earth with no parachute and lived and like defied all the odds, but he tells story after story and there are friends and buddies that were gone. But has he gone, your son? Have you taken him up in an airplane and jumped out yet?
No, he's only he'll turn 14 this month, but, you know. No, I haven't taken him up yet, to be quite honest. I was never really a big skydiver either. And at work, you know, some people they really got into. Some people got into like climbing. Some people got into fighting. Some people got into jumping. I was never one of these guys that got into jumping.
Wasn't your thing?
Well, I mean, I had a lot of jumps.
Our friend Andy Stump that loves that stuff.
Oh yeah, dude, he's incredible skydiver, and then like him and his group, I think they did like the 7 summits and stuff like that.
They did all the continents.
Like Andy
in 1 week
obviously got into it and
set the world record for distance at one point.
Yeah, another a guy that I think that did it with him. I'm pretty sure Boots did it with him, but a guy that was actually in my assault team. He was in my squadron. Guy by the name of Mike Barker, great guy. He was another guy that got bit by the jumping bug, right? And that's like his thing.
What bit you?
Oh, I kind of got into the combative stuff, like the fighting and that kind of stuff.
Like open hand stuff, or
well, you're always using a gun, right? But at the same time, even if you go on a target, maybe it's a dry hole. Maybe when I say dry hole, like there's nothing on it, right? It's very, very benign, nothing. Not even your targets on it. And then sometimes you'll go on there and there won't even be a shot fired. Like it's just really chill. Sometimes it's not, right? It can get very juicy, freaking dynamic. But you're always, no matter what, you're always putting your hands on people all the time. If you're not putting your hands on like somebody to move them or somebody you want to cuff them, search them, cuff them, detain them, take them with you. And you always got to know how to control people, right? And then not to mention, it's not like you're putting on gloves and headgear up and like, hey, let's duke it out. You have a primary weapon system, a secondary weapon system. You have hand deployed munitions on you. You have a lot of stuff. You probably have a blade on. You have things that are on you that you don't want them to have, right?
Sure.
So it's different. That's why there's like combatives and then there's also fighting, right? Like I gravitated towards both because I like to do, the jiu-jitsu, the striking, but then I also like to do the combatives too, just because hey, it was part of my job.
Sure.
Just like the guys doing the jumping things, it's part of their job.
Sure.
You know?
And they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Change gears a little bit. We're kind of talking about some stuff with your past, but it just brought up. You're a pretty cerebral guy. You're a great writer. I'm looking at your book, thinking about. I was like, man, I cannot believe you wrote this because I know you. I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
I'm just kidding. No, you're a very cerebral guy. There's most of the special operations dudes I know, most, not all, because I've met some guys that are not good speakers or writers, but most of them are highly intelligent guys. But you did a really good job writing it. Captured me. I read it. I took some notes on it and stuff. There seems to be a lot of guys that leave your job or jobs like it, and then they come to like the mass market and they market themselves to sell the thing that they've done, which makes sense, right? If I was really good at raising corn, I should teach people how to raise corn or whatever it is I do. And it seems hilarious. Combatives, for example. I've trained some jiu-jitsu. I do some boxing and Muay Thai. You just said it. And there's always this thing of like the real thing versus competition, or the real thing versus the gym. Shooting. One time you didn't understand the context, which is my fault because I was speaking to a person that wasn't you, but I said, fuck combat effective. And I don't know if you remember this. I was talking about shooting and missing like the objective on the target, but still like hitting what would be like effective in combat. But I don't know if you remember that at all, do you?
No.
Oh, you actually called me on the phone. You were like upset because you were like, how can this not make sense? Because it was like if I'm aiming here, but I hit here, it's still okay. And once we talked, you're like, oh, well, why didn't you say that? But the point was, and the point I'm making now, and I'd like to hear your comments on it, like you did this thing, and I don't worship Navy SEALs or Green Berets or anybody, but I do understand the intense amount of work. I know tons of guys that are way better shooters than you'll ever be, or way better fist fighters or grapplers, but tying all that stuff together and doing horrible things year after year after year and not dying or getting shot to shit, and I'm sure you have horrific stories of really skilled men that didn't come home. What do you think about and feel, if anything, when you see all of this crazy shit online, like guys arguing about how to hold a rifle moving through a doorway via the social media and shit, where to me it seems like it's such minutia that needs like a body of knowledge around it. Like I don't teach people CQB. I don't know shit about it, right? It's like it's not even something in my vocabulary.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a big market out there for people to prey on the uninitiated and the uneducated, right? Where they can sell this way or whatever, which looks really cool and sexy on the internet, but may not be very effective. And then some of it's just, like I think they just might not have a frame of reference, or they're just this deep, right, in the puddle, and they haven't even gone all the way to the second knuckle. They're just fingertip deep, and they make assumptions, right? People making grand assumptions on the internet, social media. No way.
There's guys that come from your unit in the Army's high unit that have minions of these people that follow them as if they were, Yoda or Obi-Wan, and I'm sure these dudes have a great level of skill and knowledge, and I'm not saying anybody in particular. It seems weird to me. It'd be like arguing about like the texture on the steering controls in a Cessna when you don't even know how to fucking fly an airplane, like, or just something like so minute. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because honestly, like there's, that's why I don't ever really like to, when I'm teaching tactics, I try not to talk about in black and white or absolutes, right? I'm trying not to give like there's a right way and there's a wrong way, because honestly, if you let's say you didn't perform to the highest and best standard, right? For God knows reason, who knows why, right? Either A, you just didn't rise to the level of your training, you had a bad day, or you just had a bad group. Who knows, right? But it's more of a continuum. It's not a right and a wrong. It's more of a continuum, right?
I mean, there are some
A
wrong
plus
things.
Yeah, well,
Don't shoot me.
well, I guess is it wrong? Is it wrong if like your objective gets accomplished and no one on your side is hurt nor killed, and everyone gets to come home and talk about what they could do better, right? To me, that's a success, right? Because A, you recognize that it was not optimal, right? You got away with it because it could have got away. It could have done bad things could have happened, right? So like that's why I say, like, I try not to talk in absolutes of right versus wrong. Yeah, you could get down and say, well, yeah, there's a definite wrong way, but if there's a definite wrong way, there's probably a definite right way too. So that's why I like to stick to the continuum, right? There's the A plus plus answer, and there's definitely an F, right? Like you don't want to slide into the F category. I guess you could, if we're splitting hairs here, F could be just wrong, right? Like that's where it's not a success, where somebody does get hurt, somebody does get killed, or A, you don't achieve your objective. That's the F. But when you hit D and you're still a passing grade, you're just ineffective or inefficient at that time. Like there's room for improvement. You got away with it. You got a D, right? Or even a D minus, right? But does that mean that it was wrong? Well, shit, man. If everybody's like 10 fingers and 10 toes and we're all good, hey, man, you got away with it. Don't, make sure the next time you do it, you start climbing up the ladder towards the A plus plus, right? So yeah, there's a lot of people that get out there and say, hey, this is the one way, but in reality, they're hey man, they're running a business. They're trying to get followers, they're trying to do this thing. And like, I need to, with my recent procurement of the site training center, I'm going to be entering into this arena, right? So I can't fault these guys for trying to market themselves properly, but I do know, just being honest with myself and my background, like, yeah, sometimes there's some really sloppy shit that happens, right? And you don't like it, but hey, that's it. And like, as long as it's not the F, as long as you achieve your goals and no one gets hurt, and you recognize that this is not the way to do it, we can tune ourselves up, you're on the right track, right? Of course, when I'm teaching, I'm like, this is the A plus plus answer. And if anybody does anything A minus or below, right, then yeah, I call them out on it, because there's obviously a better way, right? And it's the most effective way. But, yes, when I was in the squadrons, I talked about being a hard ass earlier, right? When I was in the squadrons, did I accept anything less than an A plus plus? Hell no. Fuck no. Not where we were at. Like that, it's just where we were at, that's unacceptable. Period. And I think that everybody who was there or is there would agree, right? That's why you go there, because that place exists for one reason, because they're the best, and there's no slack, right? I'll take a saying that one of my buddies coined: America deserves a unit where there is no slack, right? No slack is given, not for a performance violation, a safety violation, an integrity violation. Nothing below the standard of excellence is acceptable. And that is, I barely touch on this in my book, but that's a hard place to exist for a while, because you're living at an expectation level that is, you're a human being, man. It's hard to freaking stay at that level all the time.
Yeah,
right?
That would be burning hot.
You're burning hot all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation level is not like, if a job comes down the pike, it's not like it's coming to you from a COCOM or something like that, or like a geographic combatant commander, like CENTCOM or something like that. It's coming from the fucking top, right? Have very high visibility, no fail, right? And when you live at that expectation level for that long, man, it takes its toll on your mind, body, and soul. So, I try to be very respectful of that, not just for the guys who have been there, not just before me, but of my era, and the guys who are in right now. But yeah, like I don't I don't know really where I'm going. I try to be respectful with basically my words in that arena. Like, hey, that's a tough freaking place to be. And those guys who are doing the job right now, God bless them. We fucking need them. And they're crushing it. They're kicking ass. And I love them for it.
What kind of toll did that take on you personally?
Shit. Me, I probably will never be honest with myself. Ask my wife. Because I probably will never admit what that place did to me. Maybe
Why?
it's pride or ego or whatever, but I think I was just blind to it.
Why? Why would you not admit that?
Well, maybe admit's not the right word. Maybe it's I can't say. Because to me, I was just blind to it. I was doing my best to survive in that place and thrive and excel. And I did what it took, no matter what, because period, that was my job. Like I said, the expectation level's there. You don't quit. You don't say, hey, I need a break. You don't take a knee. You do it no matter what, right? And there are people that say, hey, man, just if you need to take off, you need to take get off the train, do it, or you need to take a knee. You think those type of people are the type of people that take a knee?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's why they're employed there. That's why they end up there, because they're the guys that don't take a knee. They're the guys that when they get smashed in the face with a baseball bat, I'm being figurative, right? Like that, they don't drop, right? They just continue going. When they get blown up, they get shot, they just continue going. There's really no other recourse, right? So I guess when it comes to me being honest about how that affected me, I don't think I can be honest, because I either lied to myself or just hid it from myself whenever I did have problems. I was like, no, I'm doing this, right? No matter what. If anybody could tell the truth, it'd probably be my wife, because she saw from a distance what happened to me while I was there.
You guys have been together through your entire career?
Correct.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I've got all kinds of friends that are Rangers and SEALs and Air Force Special Operations guys. What makes dudes like it from this particular unit any different? I know you just said this, don't take a knee, but I've talked to like some PJs. Do they take knees?
No. And I'm not in the business of disparaging.
I know you're not.
I don't want to, because all those guys I worked in a joint environment my whole career mostly, right? Aside from just like my time at Team 2 and stuff like that. But even then, I also worked in a joint environment. I worked with Army guys, Air Force guys. They're all studs. They're all awesome guys, right? I'm not in the whole like Army versus Navy silliness, right?
And that wasn't what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what makes a dude end up at this, it's the pyramid up to the top? What gets a guy there? Are you born
an insatiable appetite for the summit, right? The next highest peak, right? Where, I allude a little bit to this in my book about being at Team 2 and not really knowing a whole lot about development group, not really knowing about the command, right? And so when I knew it existed, right? But I didn't really know that much about it. It was this far off thing to me. And when I saw all the top talent at Team 2, like disappearing and going to this place called Development Group, I was like, what is this place, right? And I talked to one of the guys that was an older dude that was at Team 2, really good guy. He basically kind of laid it down. He's like, that's the place, that's the next step, that's the next level, right? Like, to what you're doing now. I don't know exactly what his exact words were. I can't recall them right now, basically. But I will say that it stoked a fire in me. I was like, well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait. You mean there's another place above this, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, yeah. Well, that's where I'm going. Like, there was no question. Like, so what makes the difference between I guess you would call it a tier 1 operator and a non-tier 1 operator is when that person has the chance to step up at bat and take a swing for the fences, they always will. When they get through the timberline and see the summit, they will always go to the top. And when they're at the top, they're always looking for the next highest peak to climb. Like, they just can't stop with the ascension, right?
That seems like it would be a great service to you and maybe also an anchor. Has that ever...
What do you mean an anchor?
I mean, that seems like it could be a real nauseating way to never just get up on a hilltop and just fucking take a look and just enjoy.
Yeah.
Watch a sunset.
No, you're absolutely right. Because there is no time for that. Maybe you can take 30 seconds and say, I did it. But then somebody's always behind you going like, what the fuck are you doing? You're wasting time. We got to go up there now. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Let's do it, right? There isn't a whole lot of resting on your laurels or appreciating your accomplishments. It's just this relentless, nonstop go to the next and continually eat and continually crush and go for it. And like I said, that's a tough, you don't know what that does to you when you're in. And sometimes, like for me personally, like even getting like retiring, like I don't really know what it did to me either. Like I do know this, like I know who I am now and I know who I was back then. I'm still the same person, just a little different, you know? I got a little different appreciation for things.
You keep saying you don't know what it did to you. That's an interesting thing.
It made me a better person.
Yeah. You are kind of a ghost, not a total ghost, but you're kind of a ghost. You've been given some awards. You had a Silver Star. It's kind of that's like the third highest medal, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. You're also the kind of guy that would act like I think so. Can you talk about that at all?
I was awarded the Silver Star for being part of Bin Laden raid, so I was able to...
I didn't know that.
So I was, honored and privileged to be part of that team, right? I don't really talk about it a whole lot, right? I don't really try. It's not plastered all over the cover of my book or anything like that. You know, I do speak about it in my book because to me it was a significant time. It was a strategic and very historical operation, and like I said, I was very honored and privileged to be a part of it. So
did all the guys get a Silver Star that were there?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's correct.
That's cool.
So, what I like to say that I charged like a hail of gunfire and was awarded that for like saving like a bunch of babies in the midst of a machine gun fire, grenades coming my way, bouncing off my helmet. No, but sometimes guys are given that opportunity to be heroes. Sometimes they are and they die, and sometimes they are and they live, right? Honestly, like I got to do a lot of good stuff in my career, stuff that I'm extremely super proud of. But I can't say with any definitive like thing that I was some sort of like, I didn't, charge a machine gun nest with just a K-bar and a 45.
I wasn't suggesting that you tell us a war story. I just didn't know what it was for. I know that it's a faux pas to ask, but you wrote about it in the book, so I thought that I would, at the very least, broach the subject. I didn't know that that's what it was for.
But we did just take a break, and how I just restarted the recording device kind of makes me think about all the electronic craziness that the world now has. Mm-hmm. How in your time has warfare changed? I was just talking to a buddy of mine that's involved in some long-range projectile development, and he comically added in a discussion talking about some bullets. He goes, none of it'll matter anyway soon enough because we'll just be flying drones at each other. Like, it was like, oh, that's scary. I don't like that. But, this kind of derail from our other conversation a little bit. How have things changed? You see pictures of guys with like different headsets on from 20 years ago, or the nerds that follow all you guys online. Sometimes I see different dudes' names and like guys like, oh, that's so-and-so, he was here. Like, it's like baseball cards almost. It's a little weird. I didn't realize it existed until I knew some of you homies. That's cool. I guess, we're paying it. We're paying for it. We might as well know who you are and what you're doing.
It's interesting because like I am somewhat conflicted, but it's like, you know what? I do understand like a warrior culture's roots, right? And this was prevalent in Viking era. I mean, prevalent in the ancient Greeks, like everywhere there was like warriors that we know about today. That was they fought to make a name for themselves. And they didn't have social media. They didn't have any of that stuff. They just knew who the biggest, baddest dudes were that they could fight against. And like the Iliad is a perfect example of this, where you read the Iliad and there's so many times within there that one guy would just come out of the lines because he sees a guy and he'd call him out by name and his lineage and be like, let's go. And the fighting would somewhat stop around them and they would go at it until somebody died. And then the fighting would commence, because now it's just a matter of like getting that guy's body so they couldn't bury it, and also stealing his gear, right? Looting and pillaging him for his gear. War trophies, essentially, right? And so, you know, like that, how interesting have we morphed over the millennia, right? Of the guy who's out there basically making a name for himself through the application of freaking violence, and people who now are supposed to be like extremely quiet professionals, do this job and don't say a fucking thing, right? So, I mean, I understand, because I lived in there, that the absolute necessity for the latter, right? But I do appreciate the former, right? But you know, for what the goings on now with the baseball card stuff, like it's kind of weird. It is weird to me, because that's not why I joined, right? I joined because I thought I was gonna do like cool, like freaking John J. Rambo stuff, but you know, and eventually I got my turn up at bat. But yeah, it's a different type of world.
There's a few channels, social media channels, having met enough people now, you know, stuff will come up in the feed and I'll be like, I know that dude. And it'll be some, you know, deployment picture from 15 years ago. And then there's like a blurb, like a baseball card, you know, John Smith, da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, unit, blah, 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 blah. And then guys start critiquing the different gear so they knew where he was, or the equipment that he's got. They know what year it was. And it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm glad it doesn't happen to the guys that are active, because I've never seen it for a guy who's active. I usually just see it for the guys who've been retired or whatever. You don't think I've seen like the similar kind of feed that you're talking about. I think it would make the guys ineffective, because there would be this like your presence of mind is solely on like your mission and getting as sharp as you can in your primary skill sets, right? So you can effectively do the mission when it comes down the pike. I think that if there was this reversion back to ancient times where now guys are like full out in the open and they're looking for that glory to really make a name for themselves, I think would just make them ineffective. It would be a distraction to what their primary purpose is, and that is being the most lethal option that the United States has to go after its adversaries.
You don't think there's some dudes on social media, some shooter guys, some jiu-jitsu guys that could be just as lethal?
No.
Just some no. That was a really easy little softball pitch there for you. I met you doing some shooting stuff years ago, and I outshot all you guys doing some pistol stuff.
Remember that?
I do. I talk about it all the time with Joey. I always say, relive it. Tell me how it went down. I did.
I do remember that one time where I fucking smoke checked your ass, and then you were like,
I'm what?
You basically, it was like
what?
a
Wait, what was it?
We were doing that speed drill with the numbers, and I just freaking smoke checked you and everybody else.
What does that mean by smoke checked?
Mean like I beat you in grand fashion.
I don't remember that.
Of course you don't.
Roll tape. That really happened?
Of course you don't. Yeah, take your Prevagen, motherfucker. But
what's Prevagen?
Exactly.
Anyway,
I'm cussing. Sorry, can I cuss on this?
I guess.
I guess I just did.
Wait, let me
try not to.
Let me finish my point.
Okay.
It's my show.
Oh, indeed it is.
What?
Forgive me.
My show. I'm just kidding. What were you going to say? You're a guest.
No. I was trying to remember the drill that you couldn't remember, and even if I remembered it, you would forget it, like because I beat you on it.
I don't know. I don't remember that. I would love to. I'm going to be making some phone calls tonight over dinner. But I started to bring this up earlier. There's this weird thing. I got a friend, Aaron Cooper. You may have met Aaron. If not, Aaron's a stud ranger. He was one of the founding members of the Army Combatives program. If you meet Aaron, you'd look at him and be like, okay, that dude, you know, could do some stuff. He's not he'll like for fun get on his bike and ride like 200 miles, like just pedal his bike just because, because it's Tuesday. He's super capable. For fun, he and his brother rode enduros from here to the tip of Tierra del Fuego. Just, let's see, it was stock seats, just like, can we ride our enduros from here to the bottom of South America? Super capable guy. Of course, he's not going to step in the octagon and beat, the top-notch dudes, but he spent so many years doing violent things with his bare hands, teaching guys, right? He was like one of the original schoolhouse guys for that program, which there's people that are like, oh, that's not a great program. But it's like, that's not the point. The point is every day he beat people and kicked people and did get-ups and just did this stuff to the point that it was like his vocabulary. It was like how he saw the world. And it seems like we've got this idea that having like a real hyper skill set, like shooting USPSA or going and rolling around and doing jujitsu, which I love doing those things, somehow makes you capable in like a broader sense than that specific discipline. And I did beat you, and I will beat you right now with a pistol if that's what it comes down to. I'll put the camera on, we'll go shoot in the neighbor's parking lot. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, keep going. No, you're not.
I guess what the question was like, does being good in all these different small modalities make you an all-encompassing better, like, I don't know, what's the moniker that you want to use, like operator, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
They're all necessary facets, right? So it's like, if you like guys who are, either at the command, at the unit, they're in some sort of component of special operations, blah, blah, blah. Their primary job is military operations, right? Primarily assault operations, usually some sort of unconventional type of operation. All those things that you just described, they're just little modalities of that job, right? But their primary job is assault operations, right? So fighting helps them do their job, like I said, because you're always putting your hands on people, right? Shooting helps them do their job because, number one, that gun revolves around, it's how you do your job. That gun revolves around everything. It's like, how well do you use it revolves around everything with that gun. You have to be very, very proficient in it. That's why guys train to a point where it's very subconscious on a lot of things that they do, right? That's why they train in a very mechanical way to build that subconscious skill, right? But does that, like, if a person is really good at, combatives, well, let's just say jujitsu and striking and some of these other things, and then they're a really good pistol and rifle shot, does that make them a good operator? I guess so, because to me, and I've used this, and like I said, I don't relate disparaging, but at this time, I've used this as an example when I've taught people before, that the term operator, in my opinion, is a monkey see, monkey do term, right? That moniker means that I've taught you how to do something and you can do it. You can operate at that level, right? But what the command, the unit, and other components of SOCOM have are tacticians. They have master level tacticians, guys who see the game on a different level. Are they operators? They're operators on a very, very, very high level. But above that, they're master level tacticians, because their job isn't just a gun or fighting or anything. It's military operations. And so I think that's where some of the disconnect goes, is that you're in a different arena. You're playing a different game. You're not just on the street slinging lead, or in a competition with a gi or no gi on, whatever. You're conducting military operations, right? So
I've noticed this, it's disrespectful. I've been kind of talking about it lately. It's this disrespect. So as the war on terror kicks off, when you and I were kids, you didn't go to Walmart and meet a dude that was a Navy SEAL or a Ranger or something like that. Like, maybe one of these people would pop up in life. My uncle knew a guy, or my dad's buddy from church or something. I got a freaking Rolodex of hundreds now, after 20 years of war, literally hundreds of guys from all of these different units. And excuse me. So for a long time, it became like, okay, super cool. This guy from this unit's teaching frickin' all the SWAT teams in this state how to do X, Y, Z, or whatever it is. And those became the subject matter experts, rightly so. And now this hyper specialized shooting sport of like USPSA, IPSC, and maybe just like the pistol rifle part of it has taken off, which I'm not so much talking to you, but the listeners. Back in the day, that's where guys in specialized units would go to learn specialized pistol craft or rifle craft from these like race car drivers with guns, right? Am I talking truth?
Absolutely.
So now full circle, it's like, well, I'm not going to listen to you. You're a dipshit. You were only successful because you had, this is like the argument. You had helicopters and, you know, laser beams from the sky and all this stuff to be successful. I'm going to go talk to this guy because he can demonstrate XYZ proficiencies on the range on this shot timer way better than you can. And that's a fact because that's his whole life. And he's got these trophies to prove it. And so it's now turned into almost a comical joke where even the sign off will be, well, why don't you do it like that guy? Because he's a Ranger Delta SEAL. You know, like that's literally like the word that they use or the phrasing. And it's like, well, wait a sec, guys. Can we like separate ourselves from this and understand like there's a guy from the Army's unit, I don't want to say his name, that he's now become a joke because people take these sound bites where I, in my limited experience of weapons craft, I understand what he's saying to the listener, which is somebody like me, a dad, a carpenter, a frickin', you know, shopkeeper that he's trying to explain this stuff in. But these super high level people that are hyper focused in like high speed pistol shooting, it sounds dumb to them. You know, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I guess seeking out, okay, well, for shooting, for instance, a guy, I lovingly refer to him as my shooting sensei, right? Like he is the guy that taught me how to shoot as a SEAL, and he probably taught generations of SEALs how to shoot.
Was he a SEAL?
No. That's my point, right? My point is he was never a SEAL. He was never like a special operator, never in the military, was never a cop. He was just very, very good at shooting.
Was that Benny?
No, it was a guy named Ross Sanders.
Okay.
What's up, Ross? He was he was very, very good shooter, but he was an even better instructor, right? And he taught in a way that, so he knew his audience, he knew what our mission set was, like basically what we were charged to do. And the whole thing I was talking about, building this at a subconscious level, he knew how to teach it that way. He knew how to teach it in a way that was so mechanical and so building block that by the time you were done with a simple 5 days with Ross, that you were shooting really, really hard. And then to continue, the more of the courses that you did, the harder that you got to shoot. And the way that he taught was so easy. It was a translatable into like self-training, right? So for instance, somebody takes a class with you, you put out your course of instruction, they leave better than they came in, right? But now they're out on their own, right? Okay, they might not touch you for a year or another year. Who knows how long they take until they take a course from you or from somebody else for that matter, right? Hopefully they take from you because there's consistency. It's part of my point about the building blocks, right? But with that, like he had a course and a curriculum and the way he taught that was so translatable to self-sustainment, right? To where after you get done shooting with him, you could go to the range, and as long as you followed that protocol, you were building that subconscious, like that firing of knowing it. People call it muscle memory, whatever. I don't know. Is that a real, like, you guys, you know what I mean, right? By you're building that skill to a subconscious level.
Automaticity.
Ooh, good word. I don't even know what that means, but I like it.
It's like when you get in that truck outside and you follow me for dinner and you turn the turn signal to go left, you know that you're going to push that knob down. You don't think about it. Your brain says we're going left, so you hit the knob down. That's automaticity.
Perfect.
Versus if I was teaching you how to drive and you said, Dad, what do I do? And I'd say, okay, there's this knob next to the steering column. You're going to put your hand on it and you push it down. And I'd say, but don't do it yet. If you lift it up, you're going to turn right. So we, just like that.
Yeah. So I guess like really it's.
I'm basically teaching him how to drive.
And I guess you're my dad now too, since you like refer to me as your
Love
son.
you. Well,
indirectly, of course.
Which is weird because you're significantly older.
I only thought by a few months.
Yeah. So significantly, if we were like 8 and you were 9.5, that's significantly older.
All right, debatable. Yeah. My like taking that point further, besides shooting, is and I'll coin another phrase that my buddy Dave said, is that we were experts at becoming experts, right? So when we were given like a challenge, which would be attached to a job, right, that we didn't have an answer for, we'd go seek those people out immediately. For jumping, for example, right? We didn't just go down the street to like Skydive Suffolk and find like the guy who's at the drop zone who's a really good jumper. We would call Red Bull and we would be like, who's your best guys? the best skydivers in the world. That's who we need to teach us this skill. Because we had a very short, finite amount of time to become an expert at one sliver. So this kind of goes back into the whole concept of military operations, vice the small skill set, is that little sliver of jumping that we need to be world class and very good at is a tiny small component of the overall operation, right? So we would go find the absolute best just so we could do that one small piece of the job the best and be the best in the world at it, or close to. We're not going to be the best in the world at it because, to your point,
you're not investing 2 years or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. So we'd get as good as we possibly can at it, right? I thought we did a pretty good job at it, but
that's interesting.
You know what I mean? We're like, it's just a small little piece. So we would seek out these guys, and these dudes that jump for Red Bull, they didn't know anything about military jumping. There was actually a guy, Luke Akins, he was the guy that jumped out of the airplane without the parachute.
Into the net.
Yeah, into the net.
Oh my God.
First off, the guy's amazing.
You know this guy?
Yeah, he's amazing. He's a cool dude. He taught me jumping, right?
Hold on, time out. You got to look this dude up. He jumped like from thousands of feet into a net that was what, like 100 foot? 100.
It was a big net,
okay.
But up at the altitude that he's at, like, it's a speck. It's a speck on the earth. And there's different wind shear levels, right? So he's getting pushed there might be like, let's say there's some, light winds on the ground.
Does he even have a parachute?
There could be winds that are ripping at 6,000 feet, a couple hundred miles an hour. Like the wind shear lines are different.
Moving
and they could be going in different directions. So he's got to get that right in his calculations, right? And he's got to be able to adjust in those wind shears as he's going down. He isn't just falling straight through. And I hope I'm not fucking this up. If it is, call me out on it. But he's not falling just straight through. He's making adjustments as he goes because he's always got that speck of a net. Like that
even
is
when he
getting
got
bigger.
Close, it's still
getting bigger
to
and
watch.
bigger and bigger and bigger that he has to adjust for. So, I mean, yeah, you could say that it was.
It's like huge 100-foot cranes holding it up in the air, and he flies right into it. It's like a handkerchief he drops into.
Yeah. It's not easy, and it takes fucking tremendous balls of steel to even undertake.
So you trained with him?
Like that. Yes, I did. Well, I should say that he trained us in really good canopy skills, right? We had a certain profile that we jumped at. I'm not really going to get into details on it.
Yep.
But we knew that canopy skills were a huge part of that, right? And so
you're talking.
Yes.
Okay.
It's just regular piloting your parachute. And so in that seeking out to become experts, we got we got Luke, we got Jeffro, we got some guys that like help us understand the finer points of piloting the parachute. And there was a guy named Evan who was phenomenal jumper at the command. Great dude. He basically got permission to put those guys through like an expedited military free fall course, right? Which is hilarious because I think at the time Luke probably had like 30,000 jumps.
To help them though understand what you were doing.
So we're like, okay, in order for you to get it, and in order to understand as well the disparity between, there might be some guys on the team that have like 5,000 to 6,000 jumps because guess what? That's what their thing. They love to do it. And then you might have some guy on the team that only has 60. right? And then you have the continuum of in between.
How many
right?
do
So,
you have?
Like 2,000.
That's a lot.
It's a decent amount because I think I got a lot of those when I was a selection and training instructor. We went through a lot of canopy control courses in preparation for each green team class so we could teach properly, you know? But what am I saying? I've just freaking lost it. Drew, cut.
Don't cut, Drew. Just keep going and leave this
Okay.
retardedness. So what was the drug you were telling me to take, big boy?
I know.
What was the one?
Help me out here, dude.
So we were talking about you guys getting some very specialized knowledge from world-class athletes. And
Thank you.
You get
okay. Thought came back. Fucking the hard drive just fired again, right? So Evan put Luke through that basic military so he could understand, like, okay, hey, you know, we're gonna take you from, you know, just a parachute and do all these things to combat equipment to full O2, the full 9 yards into our actual profile with all the equipment that we wore. And we brought him through there. Luke was a very humble, very cool dude to go through there and learn the way that we learned with all the experience that he had already. But it helped him in helping us. And I do remember one jump where he looked kind of nervous, right? Because it was like, I think the first time that he was doing a nighttime full combat equipment, high altitude, high opening jump with us, right? And this profile that we did, and he looked like kind of nervous, and you know, like this guy shouldn't be freaking nervous. He wasn't nervous about him. He was nervous about us. He was thinking like, oh my God, what we're doing is super dangerous. And there's a guy in here that only has like 60 or 70 jumps. Like these guys, either somebody's going to kill themselves or somebody's going to kill me, right? He wasn't.
He was fine. He was
fine. It was us that like, but that just kind of goes to show you, how good we are at trying to become experts at something, but also B, a little bit about the expectation level, right? It doesn't matter if somebody has 60 or 70 jumps. You freaking do it or you don't, right? And if you can't, you're fucking gone. You know what I mean? So, like it was interesting, but those guys weren't military, nor were they cops, nor were they. They were just really good at that small sliver. Same thing with combatives. We would go to fight camps. We would go to Militich, go to American Top Team. We'd have
You
Boss
train with
Root
Pat?
and some. Yeah.
Pat's a friend. Boss is a friend of mine. Those are
Dude,
good dudes.
we got to go to Militich a couple times. I think it was in.
You're not far
06.
from him now out at the site.
I know. Bettendorf. I don't think is Champion still there? Because when
He's still out there.
Nice.
I'll connect you to him when we're done.
Nice. Yeah, when we went out there, I mean, he had world champions,
Yeah.
a bunch of them. So none of those guys were operators or cops or anything of the like, but they really, really knew their sliver. And so we had the context and knew what we needed. And so we would go to that one person and be like, train us how to do this really, really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would take all that knowledge, come back,
Drill the hell
and
out of it.
translate it to our world in a military operations sense.
Mm-hmm. I dig that. I have seen with the guys I know, and you kind of just spelled it out perfectly, a ability to recognize what I don't know, and then usually the ability to say, I don't know this. If I need to know it, I'm a sponge, dude. Tell me whatever. Whereas I've seen other people that maybe don't come from those same areas, that ego won't let them look less than. You know, I can do it. And then they either don't want to go learn the thing, whatever it is, not even about military, just in life. My friend Z, I noticed this a lot with him, you know, where he's just like, we do a lot of cooking, like at our S12 event, and he does not. And so he'll be like, show me how to use that knife. What are you doing out there? Let me peel the potato? No, don't. You fucked it up the last time you tried, you know? But he show me what you're doing. Show me what you're doing.
Intellectual curiosity that feeds the desire to become better. Like Z is just one of those guys that he sees something, a skill or a piece of knowledge that he doesn't have, and he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
And also being from his background, he knows that you can't just jump from 0 to 100. you have to ask questions and you have to learn. It's a process of the whole thing. So just that intellectual curiosity and the humility to ask questions where some people will be like, you don't know what this is for?
Yeah.
You're a freaking idiot, right?
Yeah.
Like, but being unafraid of those questions, being unafraid of being judged for not knowing that skill set, like that's part of the deal. That's freaking learning 101.
You were on a parachute jump once and you fell 60 feet out of a tree, according to you.
Yeah,
So you ended up in the trees.
I did.
Tell that story.
It was my sixth static line jump, right? So I was, wouldn't say fresh out of buds. I got out of buds 2 months prior in August. So I guess that would have been 4 months, right? Doing the math, right? So, and then I checked into my first SEAL team, SEAL Team 2 in October of 98, right? So December of that year, there was a jump. One of the platoons was doing a jump in Fort Pickett. And when you go to jump school, or it's different now, they do it different now. But back then, you would go to jump school, you get your jump wings, right? And then you would go to your team. And in order to get the gold wings that you see below every, SEAL's trident, you had to do 5 more static line jumps in order to get your gold wings. So of course, everyone's like trying to hop on a bird and get those jumps knocked out. Had the opportunity to jump on this C-130 and do a nighttime jump in Fort Pickett. Thought I was going to be quick and easy, right? It was actually somewhat temperament, like as far as the weather, like it was nice. And I mean, I was wearing I think this was nice in Virginia Beach. At Fort Pickett, it was a little bit chillier. I was like wearing like a t-shirt and these little Ranger panties, whatever, the ones that we were issued, like the little short black shorts and a flight suit. Didn't really have anything. But back then it was 98. We weren't jumping with all the stuff that we had now. And so, just a Protect helmet and a strobe light. I didn't even have a flashlight. That's how, I don't want to say stupid. I'm just saying how naive and green I was at the time.
To not think that it would be nice to have.
Yeah, or just to be like, oh yeah, what if something goes wrong? Of course, yeah. It's not like I was like, yeah, sure, I'll just be up and down, right? So we go up there, we jump out of the bird, and somebody put us out 30 seconds too early at Fort Pickett. And Fort Pickett is a massive DZ. It's huge. But at the same time, 30 seconds is a long way when you're traveling at that speed. And so when we jumped out, it's, I'm looking for the T. And when I say the T, when you're jumping a static line, they usually have the T lined up in the winds. So if you read it and it's an actual T, then you're facing in the correct direction for the winds. That's how the DZ crew sets it up. So I'm looking for the T because it should be right underneath of us. Because static line, you're jumping pretty low, right? 1,500 feet. And as we get out, I'm like, where is it? Where is it? And then I see it. And it's like actually to my right. And it's not even 45 like this. It's almost towards, I'm like that far away, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? I started chuckling to myself because I was like, this is stupid.
At least you know which way you're hiking.
Right. And then as I'm looking down, I'm trying to figure out, because I didn't have night vision, looking down, couldn't really tell what it was. I'm like, is that grass? Is that a marshy area? I don't know. By the time I saw it was pine trees, I didn't have any time except to ball up, right? Because I blasted through the top of the canopy, and then or I should say the canopy of the trees, and my parachute canopy caught on top of it, right? So now here I am, just some freaking dope on the end of a rope, swinging back and forth, stuck in the trees. And I kind of chuckled to myself again, laughing oh God.
Did you have goggles
this is
on?
going to be a long... what do you mean goggles?
Oh
yeah, and I pulled those off, right?
So you had some eye protection.
I had some eye protection, and I'm looking oh shit, what can I do? And so now I can't really see. It's pitch black except for the split second that I get every time my strobe light snaps, right? And that's about once every 1 or 2 seconds, however, what of those green freaking strobes are, right? So I'm looking around, and every tick I can get a snapshot of my predicament. Right. So I'm looking around, and I'm basically in the middle of a ring of trees that are all like at least double arm's length away, right?
Oh, no.
They're like, I can't really get to them whatsoever. There's no branch to like cling to or try to climb down the tree. So like I said, like I thought it was kind of amusing, right? Like, oh my God, like what the hell is this? And then I looked down. I looked down and every tick, I just see these tree trunks fading into blackness. So I don't know really how high I am, right? So my jovialness kind of like started getting a little bit less jovial, but I was still like, all right, I'm still in this tree. I just need time to figure this out. And that's when everything started going above my head. And I was like, oh no, like I've got to do something, right? So I started getting into try to like swing into my harness, right? I'm like, if I'm going, like I'm going to freaking go. Well, a branch snaps, right? And it wasn't long because from the time it started breaking, from the time I fell, it seemed like a long time, but it really wasn't that long. A branch fucking cracks and I drop like a foot and I'm like, like everything, all this like anxiety that was down here, like went up here and I'm like, oh shit. Like I'm about ready to, like, who knows how high I am, right? And I'm just like, and you have this utter feeling of helplessness like washed over me. Like, what can I do? So I start swinging in my harness, trying to reach, like maybe at least if it breaks, I might be able to grab a tree trunk in the darkness, which was ridiculous because I had no light to see. Like if it was in between ticks and I didn't know where the tree trunk was, there was no way to grab it, right? So long story short, on an up pendulum and down, right as I was coming down is when everything broke away and I just started falling, right? And so as I was falling, I think to myself, oh shit, like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how far I'm going to go. I don't know where the ground is. So I just kind of get in this PLF position. PLF is military acronym for parachute landing fall, right? So in a perfect world, you do a static line jump, you're coming down, you put your feet and knees together, and as you're kind of going in a direction, one way or the other, you basically put your feet and knees together. When your feet hit the earth, you like roll. And you like do this
just
roll.
Dump your energy.
Anybody who's done static lines, like, yeah, they suck, right? Does a PLF work? Maybe in perfect conditions, but ask anybody in airborne, they probably have bad backs and bad knees. Like when you hit the ground, you hit like a sack of shit. And I was hitting with a freaking foul, who knows what parachute above my head. And I'm looking, just thinking to myself, oh, just look at the horizon, be a wet noodle, like feet knees together. And I'm thinking to myself, what horizon? It's just darkness, right? And like I said, falling, it seemed like forever, but it really wasn't that long. And then I hit, right? Feet first. And it was like feet ass instantly. In my recollection was I hit and I was instantly awake, writhing in pain, I freaking ended up breaking 2 of my vertebrae in my back. But there was a dude that was stuck across from me, and we had a small conversation as I was about ready to fall. I think the last thing I said to him was, "I'm falling," right? Because he was like, "Hey, don't worry, there's the DZ crew's coming," which they weren't, right? And so he saw me fall, and when I saw him
watching
later,
your strobe disappear.
Yeah, when I saw him later, he was like, "Dude, I thought you were dead." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "You hit he was like, I heard you say you're falling, and I heard you fall, and then I heard this big smack, and then there was nothing for like 30 minutes.
Oh shit!
It was like nothing." And he was like, "I was calling out to you, I was yelling for you, and
he's still
nothing."
hanging.
And he was still hanging. He was the last guy cut out of the trees. A good dude named Jason Elliott, man. I remember I'll get to that part of the story, right? So I hit, like I said, I must have been unconscious for like 30 minutes and didn't even know it. To me, it was like instant awake. I'm hurt and I'm laying there after being in an immense amount of pain and kind of writhing for a second. And then I see the one branch that my parachute caught on. And that is like the one that's like it's like a piece of like deadfall. It's on the ground. And it's just preventing the canopy from covering me like a death shroud. And I'm like, it's billowing in the wind every time my strobe light ticks. And I'm like, oh my God, this sucks. And of course, the DZ crew was all over the place. We had 9 out of the 13 jumpers in the trees. There was like people scrambling all around, you know, to get us out. So finally, there was a guy that just runs by me and does like this freaking slide, like he's sliding into home base into these like leaves. And he's like, dude, are you all right? It was almost like he did a double take and saw me. I was like sliding, like, hey, whoa, there you are. Are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm okay. And he's like, oh, okay, check. Oh, you need a corpsman? I'm like, I might. And he's like, all right, well, one's on the way. And he just got up and ran because he's just looking to
Finding
find
bodies.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this guy comes by, he was a corpsman, and he does like the whole, hey, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, everything else. Like, hey, is everything good? My back was like lit up. And he asked me a question that self-admittedly, he said that he should have never asked before, but whatever. It's just, hey, we were just kids back then. You know, he's like, hey, man, can you walk? And I was like, yeah, I can walk. I had no idea. I was just like, I could, but I didn't want to lay there any longer because I was actually starting to freeze my ass off. And so I get up, and he's off trying to find guys too to see if anybody else is hurt. I walk over underneath Jason, and he's still freaking stuck up there. He tried to deploy his reserve and climb down it, and all it did was just like catch wind and kind of try to pull him further out of the trees. So he pulled it up and stowed it. And where I landed, I was very fortunate because it was very flat ground, right?
Damn, climbing down that would be difficult. That ain't rope.
No, no. But if you need to, you can. Right? But where I was fortunate. Where I was underneath Jason, like that was like there was like this like little big like ditch, like a little gully. There was like a chewed out tree stump from like beavers. There was like a deadfall like laying. Like if he fell, he wouldn't have had that perfect hit on flat ground like I did. He would have really fucked himself up, right? So, you know, I kind of like told him, I said, well, whatever you do, don't fall like I did because you probably won't make it. He didn't appreciate that comment. And like he was stuck in that tree for probably, I'd say 3 or 4 hours. Like he literally at that point, like when they finally cut him down and got him out of the trees, he couldn't move his arms or his legs because he was in that harness for so long.
Wow. Yeah, that would be brutal.
But yeah,
so you broke your back.
Broke my back.
Came back from that.
Yeah.
That was at the beginning of your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I do write about this in my book about trusting that warrior spirit, trusting what the experts tell you, right? So basically they put me in eventually I ended up in an ambulance that went to Petersburg Hospital, right? And in Petersburg Hospital, I had this, I mean, it's like by the time I got there, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. There was this old doctor, they x-rayed, because I was a full trauma case. They x-rayed me from head to toe and they found where my back was broken. And the guy comes in and he's like, hey, I don't know how to tell you this, but your back's broken. And he delivered it in the most like somber, macabre way where it just felt like the whole world came crashing down on me. I was 22 years old. I wasn't even at the SEAL team for 2 months. I just started like this dream that I had in my heart. And he was like, yeah, I don't know how to tell you, but your back's broken. And I didn't even skip a beat. I said, no, it's not. And the guy's like, well, I got the x-rays right here that says it is. And I'm like, well, it's not. And I just basically argued with him. It didn't matter that my back was actually broken. I just didn't want to accept what he was telling me. Like this voice inside my head, inside my spirit was just basically saying, you're fine. There is nothing wrong with you. You were walking a couple hours ago. You will be just fine. You're a piece of iron. You're invincible. Don't say those words, your back is broken. Don't acknowledge him and say, yes, it is broken. Just deny it. Like, even though it was reality, just deny it. And so that's what I did. And after, you know, the guy probably thought I had some head trauma. I probably did. But he basically got tired of arguing with me and left, right? And I was in that hospital for like, I don't know, 24 hours or something. Somebody finally came up from the team and picked me up and drove me back. But it was about 8 months or so until I was, well, I'd say less than that. Like, I'd say 8 months until I was like fully freaking healed. But it was probably like 4 or 5 until I was like, I felt good enough to do my job again. And then I went through something called STT in the summertime and was SEAL tactical training. Like back then, you showed up at the SEAL team, you didn't have a trident or nothing, right? Like you were just this dude hoping to prove himself. And then it took about a year before you got your trident, because you had to go through this thing called SEAL tactical training, which now they do something called SQT. They do it all in Coronado, but we all did it at on our parent coast. So we did all this different training, came back, studied for this oral board that they would just grill you on. Like you get in front of the whole team, all this freaking like seasoned operators in the team, and they pepper you with like questions about some sort of like, give me the, like some frequency on the prick 77, or like, show me how you like, load crypto in this radio, or tell me about this. How do you rig a duck to deploy out of a C2 for jump operations? Like stuff that I've totally forgotten now. But they ask you all these things, and if you get all the answers right, they're like, all right, cool, you get your trident. And then they freaking tack it in you, and then you're a SEAL.
Ow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Part of the game.
So the broken back didn't stop you?
No, because I didn't accept like what people were telling me. And I think it was Bruce Lee that once said like, hey, even don't talk bad about yourself, even in a joking manner, because the body doesn't know the difference, right? So it's like a lot of people self-deprecate. I'm guilty of it too, right? And we have this talk, which is joking, and we sometimes kid ourselves, but like your words have power, right? Because your words are all about how they affect your constitution, they affect your well-being, right? It's what you're telling yourself. It's the story that you're telling yourself. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm going to be sick, healthy. I'm going to come back from this injury. Oh, it's going to take me 9 months. Oh my God, I'm never going to be right again. All these things that you tell yourself manifest within yourself. And so I didn't know any of that stuff back then. I just knew to listen to that little voice inside my head when it told me, right? And I wasn't a very spiritual person back then, but I did believe in God. I just wasn't our relationship wasn't very close, right? But I just knew when that voice spoke to me to just not even question it, just listen to it and do what it says. And that's like, and trust it implicitly, because it won't steer you wrong. Because it's basically the voice of God inside yourself speaking to you directly. And to question it is kind of silly.
I dig that. Did people think you were done?
Some people thought it like right away, because basically I'm like, I can tell you, like the doctor was being very dramatic about it, right?
Broken backs are pretty serious.
That it was very like this thing that was going to end me. But I think once I got back to the team and was able to like move around a little bit and show people that, hey, I'm going to continue to do my therapy, my rehab, and get back on track. They had freaking other things to worry about anyways, like their own shit, right?
Did the guy that flipped the light 30 seconds too early get in trouble? Yeah.
And he apologized to me and some other people. His name was Toast, right? That was his nickname, Toast.
Why?
His first name was Burned.
Oh.
Like Burned, I think was it Burned Haverkamp was his name? But it was like one of those things.
Throwing this dude right under them.
Hey, you fucking put me in the trees, motherfucker. No, it's all right. He's actually a cool guy. He was on the SISM team in the Navy. Like that's like their swimming team. It was funny. He like lived in a trailer on Little Creek. It was funny. And I think he felt bad one time and like invited me out to his like trailer on Little Creek. This is not going anywhere. I know you, so you're probably already thinking this is weird. But we had some beers and he said he was sorry and like this, that, and the other. But bottom line is, when shit fucking happens, right? In training and in combat. And do I fault him for it? Whatever. The guy made a mistake. I'm okay.
My buddy Super Dave Harrington, who's just coming up on a year of his death, he was the guy that ran the marksmanship program at Range 37 at Fort Bragg. I repeat this often. He had a saying that was, the first time I heard it, it was just like, yeah, whatever. But he said, everything's important, everything matters. Do the right thing at the right time, every time. And he would say that, and I'd just be like, I'm like, yeah, you just basically said do everything perfectly. And that was like his mantra though, like 30 seconds, man.
That's good. I mean, hey, you know what? Honestly, like that's a great mantra. That's great words to live by, but it's also like, so I'll talk about that expectation. I talked about that earlier, that expectation level. Like you set that, like he's setting those expectations extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because he believes in excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Good on him. But also when excellence doesn't happen, right? You have to be able to like forgive not just yourself for not living up to those expectations of excellence that you set for yourself, but you have to forgive others for not living up to those expectations of excellence within the team. Now, then again, if it's a repeatable thing and it's indicative of a pattern to where this person probably needs to go because they're just not cutting it, that's one thing. But if it's just like this off, like one time, because we're all human beings, I don't care. There is no fucking Superman. There is no super operator. There is no like perfect person, right? So people make mistakes, and in that harsh environment to where there is no slack whatsoever, and basically the expectation level's super high when we are extremely hard on each other when mistakes were made. At least it was given to me that way, and I also gave it that way. Right?
I could imagine. You
And
were
so-
probably a jag off.
Oh yeah, I wasn't the nicest
I
person at
bet
times.
you were a total jag off.
Quite possibly true. There'll probably be people out there like probably yelling at the screen like, "You are a fucking asshole," and they wouldn't be wrong, right? But whatever, right? Like I said, I'm a nice guy now. But like my point being is when you're in there, like everyone makes a mistake. And so even though we're extremely hard on each other, we eviscerate badly each other, mainly not to make ourselves feel less than, not to basically look at somebody and go, "You are a piece of shit." Like, go kill yourself because you basically do the world a favor. It's not like that. It's to create a micro trauma because trauma is memorable, right? Like that's the whole thing about post-traumatic stress disorder. We lived in fucking traumatic stress. That was our arena. Like that's where like traumatic stress was, that was our thing. Like we gave that traumatic stress to each other. We went and sought it out on the battlefield. We went and sought it out in selection to become who we are. So it wasn't, it stands to reason that we use traumatic stress as a tool to remind ourselves of the infractions, right? Like, and remind ourselves of the cost of those infractions, right? So even though we eviscerated each other and like held each other to like this standard where you felt it. And sometimes if you weren't able to forgive yourself and also forgive others, like it became like this very toxic thing, but it was never meant to be that way. It's just it was a tool that we used to remind people of the cost of mistakes, the cost of failure. Because we played a game where the cost of a mistake wasn't like, "Oh man, don't worry, you'll do a better job next time." The cost of a mistake could mean somebody's life. It could mean somebody's basically like livelihood. You could put them in a fucking wheelchair for the rest of their lives. So we took it very seriously and we were super hard on each other. But we still forgave each other because can you imagine a group that lived under those expectations that are doing that? They're only human and they never forgave each other for that. They never looked at each other as human beings that sometimes didn't live up to the standard of excellence that really is that standard. Like granted, I said before there is no slack, blah, 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 and there isn't, right? But we gave each other grace at times. It was usually after this massive tongue lashing that made you feel like, "Oh my God, I'll never do that again," right? But that was a necessary thing to remind you the cost of what a cost of failure or mistake is. But we had to forgive each other. But the thing is like what made it easy to forgive each other with ease was how quickly we owned mistakes. We would own mistakes immediately. So if we fucked up, it wasn't like, "Hey, you did this." And on rare occasions it was, right? Very rare occasions. But 99% of the time you would have a guy immediately own up to his mistake, right? "Hey, I fucked that up." and then it would be a verbal tongue lashing. But because the guy immediately owned up to it and said it wouldn't happen again, he'd get his lashing, but then you were like, it's over. And you forgot about it, right? As long as it didn't become indicative of a pattern, right? Once it became a pattern, we just worked in a place where that just wasn't tolerated. Like you couldn't afford to establish a pattern of mistakes, especially the same one twice. So like, you know, you took your mistakes very seriously, right? But you forgave not just yourself, but others for committing them. And then you moved on, right? There was no harboring of ill feelings. If you were to sit in a debrief with some of us, you'd probably be like, oh my God, they fucking hate each other. We loved each other. That's why we talked to each other like that, because we loved each other, right? We loved each other so much that we didn't want to see each other living below that standard of expectation. And we didn't want to see that person not remember the cost of that mistake and make it again, and therefore actually become indicative of a pattern and then potentially get kicked out. You know what I mean?
Then your brother was gone.
So forgiveness is a huge part of high standards of excellence, super high standards of excellence.
I dig that. You talk about it quite a bit in your book.
Mainly because I messed up so many things, I had to forgive myself. I mean, I will say this, like, I hope I'm not guilty of self-aggrandizement. Only the readers will be the judge. But I think self-aggrandizement is a turnoff, but I use myself as a case study of what not to do. Because
I wouldn't have you here if I felt that. I despise self-aggrandizing people. Not despise them and look down on them. It's just like people, you've been around these guys. I'm sure there's plenty of dudes that think you're great and you feel I think you're a great guy, but you're no greater than my nephew who we were just talking with. Greater at things, right? You have certain skill sets, but I don't look at you any different than I look at Kanan or anybody else. But I'm sure there's people that are just like, oh, and that annoys the shit out of me. That if you're into football or Pat Miletich or one of those guys, if that's your thing, of course you're going to look up to the person as a thing. But the guys that in this space or any that are like, you know, look at what I've done, that's gross. I wouldn't even want to talk to you. So you did not. Well, it's gross.
I mean,
it's just.
I think it's a turn off myself. I listen. It. I have a lot of friends who I absolutely love who are big fans of themselves, you know. But you know what? It's just who they are.
I think that's a hard. So you're talking about self-talk a minute ago, right? You brought up Lanny Basham, who I called yesterday after you and I spoke, which I'll talk to you about over dinner. But you know, like with Winning in Mind, his book, it's like me to win. It's like me.
Yeah.
And you can't do that and then not think a certain way.
Yeah.
But you could also add, it's like me to be humble. It's like me to not self-aggrandize. It's like, so it's something, one lever got turned or lifted too much and it becomes gross. It's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
It's a waste of energy. But that brings me to a question I was going to ask you. I'm listening to you. So I've told you about some of these guys that they hear your name and they're like, was there some teammate or older SEAL that you, in your mind, were like, man, that dude was like the dude?
A ton of them.
But like, was there one?
I wouldn't say just one.
No,
there were so many because, you know, they say it takes a village, right? Like when they're talking about raising kids, it takes a village. It's the same way when you're raising a tier 1 operator, right?
Okay.
It takes a village. And there are, to name just one guy. I'm just saying like, you know, like what's the greatest baseball player of all time? You know, Pete Rose or, you know, whatever, like somebody will. But now we're back to the baseball card thing.
I'm just saying in your own mind, so that what I think you're saying is your brain doesn't work that way.
My brain doesn't work that way.
Okay, that's cool.
Like I considered it an immense privilege, and maybe I took it for granted when I was in the fucking hopper, because sometimes that train's moving so fast, it's easy sometimes to take it for granted until you step off and go, holy crap, what? Dude, I did what? Right? Like, sometimes for me, have a better appreciation for the things that I have done, and I almost had no appreciation for when I was doing them, right? But when I was doing them, I was seeking knowledge from a lot of different people, and maybe sometimes through direct questions, and maybe sometimes just from witnessing. Like, I like how that guy does his business. I want to be more like him, right? And you don't tell anybody, you just know it and you try to emulate them. But it's also like, he's just one of a dozen, if not 24 guys that you're looking at going like, I love how that guy does business. I want to do more things like him. I mean, I can't state it enough how deep and wide the talent pool is in places like the command and the unit. Like, there are just so many guys that are just phenomenal, right? And
It's like
maybe
hanging out at like an Olympic locker room or something.
Yeah. And there are definitely the standouts that some guys are they're just really, really good, right? And then there are some guys that are really good at one thing, maybe not so good at others, but it doesn't matter because you're all in the same arena. You're all playing the same freaking game, right? And so you just have a deep appreciation and really a love for those guys, and you emulate each other, right? And you have this really healthy, there's a good, strong culture of competition at the command. I'm guessing the unit. I've never, I was never there, right? But that it's a very healthy competition, right? Like, it's not anything toxic. It's just like, you see other guys and you see how they do business, and you want to beat them, right? You want to be like them so much that you surpass them, and everybody's looking at each other that way. And it's just like that rising tide lifts all boats, because everyone's competing to be top dog, but it's not toxic. It's not toxic competition. It's just like, you really appreciate what that guy can do, and so you want to do it too.
I like that. Change gears. The Sight Firearms Training Center.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of people, especially those not from here, don't know what it is. You recently became one of the owners of it.
Yes.
It's a fantastic place that I've been to many times. And when I saw you posted on social media, two things. One, I was like, this son of a buck is right down the street from me multiple times and hasn't texted or called. I totally texted him. I was like, you're a total piece of crap. You're a loser.
Guilty.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care at all. I'm not harboring any resentment. No, but that's really cool. Talk about it. What are you going to do out there?
So my business partner and I, Matt Dulendowski, freaking phenomenal guy, right? Just great American, great guy, tremendous family. Couldn't say enough great things about him. He actually knew of the place before I did, and kind of explained to me like, hey, there's this place out here. Would you be interested in doing something with me on it? And yeah, I agreed, obviously, because owning a training facility was kind of like a personal dream of mine, especially when I retired from the military. I was like, I'd really like to do this. I actually looked at a couple different places, and thank God that didn't work out. There was just too many red flags. But fast forward to 9 or 10 years after I retired, and now it's finally coming to fruition. But back to the site, we have total, it's about 141 acres, but that includes where our lodging is, with our kitchen and everything else. But the actual training zone is about 129 acres, and we have a 600-yard long range. We have a 600-yard unknown distance range. They're right next to each other. We got a 2-story sim house. We got a 1-story live fire shoot house built to the standard of a lot better standard than what I trained in as a early SEAL, right? I've trained in some houses that were made of tires, that were made out of freaking, railroad ties with fill in between. Unfortunately, it usually takes some sort of training accident to rally the groups and like get a set standard. That happened in 2007. There was a kid that got killed. So basically in a shoot house. And then, so basically at that point, like the government said, hey, it has to be of this standard, of this caliber, in order to conduct training, right? Military training and the like. And so thankfully we had that house built to that compliance to that standard. That's a tremendous asset. I love that. CQB is one of my passions. I love that. It's like although I went through sniper school in 2001, I never really fulfilled that role operationally. So I'm kind of just a sniper and qual only. But I do appreciate that stuff. But CQB is where my heart is at.
What's
so,
one MOA at 100 yards?
12 inches. It's one. Come on, I know that. But so we have that, and then we have a lot of cool flat ranges that we have, obviously steel targets. We're doing a lot of dynamic training, like shooting at vehicles and such. The site, in my personal opinion, previously to our acquisition of it, was being underutilized. It wasn't being used to its fullest and highest potential. There was just so much that could have been done with it that just hadn't. So it just made acquiring it that much sweeter. I just came from there yesterday, actually. And, aside from getting my hands around it and wrangling, like learning all the business activities and all these functions, like I have a lot on my plate doing that. But yesterday I basically went through all of the ranges, all of the facilities, everything, and just like started jotting down a punch list, because what we want to do is bring that training facility to the next level, right? And then beyond, not unlike I talk about in my book about high standards, about how, it's all about, but being a warrior, right? Like having that warrior spirit, wanting something better than what you've got. And then once you achieve it, you reset the baseline, and then you're continually looking to improve. It's really what we want to start doing at the site. We want to improve the grounds and set the new baseline, and then look to the horizon of what we're going to do next and how we're going to improve it again. We're going to start offering our own training. There was a lot of, so the previous director of training, guy named Jim Copper, he's a SEAL back in the day before my time, and his son is actually the commanding officer of the command right now. Great guy, by the way. And then also his father, Jim Copper, the guy I was talking about, is another phenomenal dude.
Jim's a good dude.
And I did a turnover with Jim in Virginia Beach about some of the business activities and such, and my first time meeting Jim, and just a phenomenal guy. Really couldn't say anything bad about the dude. I had nothing but good things to say about Jim. Really enjoy him. So Jim did a lot with the sniper side because that was his forte. Right now we get a lot of usage of that long range. And not too many things like that around here, and it's a scarce resource in Northern Illinois, or Illinois, really. I should just say the Midwest. Not too many places like it. But we're going to start offering a lot more courses aside from just our sniper courses. Start offering CQB courses, a lot more like combat marksmanship courses.
And this is MIL LE centric stuff.
Yes, MIL LE centric stuff. Right now, traditionally in the past, the site didn't do any business with the military. Of course, every training facility out there wants to do business with the military. It's our goal to do business with the military, but we know that those guys understand the requirements best, right? What we can do to best serve them is just to improve our grounds to the best possible range that we can give them. And we can offer them, hey, here's the playbook of what we have to offer. And if I hand them a hammer, they're going to know what to do with it. They may not even pound a nail with it. They probably could do 1,000 other things with that hammer that I never even thought of. I'm looking to build up that site, build up our ranges and all of our facilities to become that best hammer that they can take and use to their requirements. I've been out of the game for a little while, although I would like to consider myself still proficient in a lot of stuff. I can definitely still teach. I still know my stuff. The guys who are still active, they know what their requirements are the most, because the game is ever changing, right? You incorporate drones, you incorporate all kinds of stuff, the litany of things that I didn't really use when I was in, but the guys are using right now. So, like I said, make the best hammer possible, offer that to the guys, and hopefully they choose us. We hope that, we think that with the right love, the right, intelligence put into the place, that we can do that. We can achieve our goals.
It's like you to win.
Well, I hope so. I don't like losing. Not saying I haven't, but hey, I'm not in this to fucking
Just
lose.
coming
I'm in it to win.
Full circle on Basham.
Yeah.
If the people that have spent a couple hours with us never cross your path, I should have refilled that. You told me no.
No, it's fine. This is not vodka. This is actual water right here. But it looks like it because I'm sipping. I'm being very
judicious in your water consumption. If these people never cross your path, they don't meet you in this life, what would you leave them with?
Great question. I would say that the impossible is totally possible. It's 100% achievable. If you limit yourself and believe that there is an impossible, then you've already failed, right? When I was 20 years old, anyone who knew me, including my own parents, never thought I could have ever achieved or accomplished what I did, right? And I'm not trying to stroke myself up, say I'm the greatest things. It's like, that's not the point. My point is I was an ordinary dude, actually probably much less than ordinary dude, very young, who had this calling put into me by my creator that said, you're destined for great and better things than what you're achieving now. I accepted that calling and went on to do it. And I did not look at anything as impossible. I'm like, of course I can do that. I didn't accept what people told me when they said, you can't do that, right? I had a lot of well-intentioned relatives that asked me, well, what's your backup plan? What are you going to do if this fails?
I hate backup plans.
There was no safety net. The lack of a safety net was purposeful, right?
You hear that a ton with young people, but anytime I have a lot of people ask me about business stuff because I've been self-employed for almost 30 years now, and when they start a conversation telling me their backup plan or plan B, I'm like, why are we talking? Not that I'm some business guru or anything like that, but like, you're not even trying to do the thing, man. You're talking about getting a touchdown while talking about going to the locker room and cleaning toilets or whatever. Piss off.
I got caught in a conversation one time with a guy who called me out on this because I was actually talking about backup plans when it came to military operations. I was talking about contingency plans, basically.
Which is kind of important.
All right. So yeah, we have our plan, right? And then we have a contingency plan. What if something goes wrong? Because we have an aim, right? We want to be able to achieve it. No fail mission, blah, blah, blah. You get the story, right? So contingency plans are a part of that. And he called me out. I was like, isn't that a backup plan?
This is while conducting planning for an operation.
This is actually This is actually earlier this year. Was a younger kid, had zero military experience, and he was just kind of talking to me about my experience, and he was just trying to get to understand it. And when he called me out on it, I was like, well, that's a good point. And he said, I thought, because I was talking to him about the lack of a safety net being purposeful. And when he called me out on that, I was like, okay, that's good. I'm glad you did, because
now I can.
Well, no, it just keeps me honest, right? And so there's times for it and there's times not, right? Like the safety net, when we go out and do an operation, there's not necessarily a safety net, but there is a contingency plan. It's like, hey, if something zigs, we got to zag. We got to make sure that we can combat this obstacle, right? That might be thrown our way. Hence, you could call it a backup plan. My point, I guess, is
all of that, though, still centric to what the original goal was.
Yes, but I guess my point is stepping into the furnace, because when I was conducting military operations, I had already gone through the crucible, the furnace. I'd already been forged by that fire, right? I was now operating and playing a game in a different arena. I guess my point is when deciding, especially if those are choosing the path of professional warrior, right? You can't get through to any component of SOCOM, any JSOC unit, anything like that without going through some crucible, some selection, whether it's the Q course or Ranger School or BUDS or what have you, right? If you have a safety net in the very beginning, right? Like you're at the threshold, right? And you're saying like, I want to walk through this door, right? And if you have a plan B, which is a tether to the back of that door. Once you walk through that door, you have to slam it shut behind you. And there is no tether, there is no safety net, there's no nothing. That must be purposeful, right? I think that anyone who enters a selection, and granted this is a big claim and I'm probably wrong, but it's just my personal opinion, that anyone who enters a type of crucible or selection course with a plan B or a tether to their former life is destined to fail, right? Because their mind is not forward facing.
Right? I would say without any of that experience, if you do that with anything that's hard, I want to get a gold medal, I want to frickin' sell more widgets than the next guy, I want to frickin' get the girl. Because what are you not thinking about? The thing. That kid's got a point, but that's also a little smart assery.
No, I think he was trying to play a little gotcha with me, but that's all right.
That's what I'm saying. It's a little smart assery.
That's all right. That's all right.
There's layers and levels to things, right? You can, an expert chef can get away with doing some shit that a person that has to go grab Betty Crocker can't get away with. A driver, I got friends that are professional drivers that can do shit in minivans that, like, I couldn't do in a Ferrari. And so I hope the kid learned a lesson.
I don't think he did, but that's all right. Hopefully he does eventually. Because if he was anything like me, probably is going to take like 8 years and about 10 million failures.
I was a total dummy as a young man. I was a total dummy. I appreciate that we got to spend the time together. Just so you're aware, 1.046 inches is one MOA at 100 yards. If you stack that air up like one MOA at, say, 1,000 yards, it'd be 10.46 inches. So you've now added that 0.46. So I just wanted to get him with that because...
you got me.
Yeah.
Like I said, not my old forte. I went through it. I went through sniper school about 25 years ago.
What I do want to say, though, is I appreciate... I'm just fucking with you. You're a very humble guy. Because if you looked at you, you wouldn't think any of this is true.
What do you mean?
You don't look the part. I'm just kidding. I love it's.
Oh, what's that supposed to be?
You're always just like, yeah, I do. You live that. You still look at it as a 50-year-old. I think that's kind of like a thing. You probably don't turn that off. I've got a couple friends that were Olympians, and I know that sometimes you read about these guys or girls winning medals, and then they life falls apart because they've lost purpose. But for the most part, all these people I know, Pat Miletich, Bas Rutten, people that have climbed some mountain like that, maybe they don't do that thing anymore. Bas doesn't get into cages, or Pat. You look at them, they're still freaking freaks. They're still Bas eats sweet potatoes and does one-arm push-ups.
Yeah, he hasn't forgotten who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's a warrior at heart. That guy... doesn't matter if he's in the freaking in the ring or in the cage anymore, right? He knows who he is. He doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what he's doing is different, but what's inside of him, what's in his spirit, it's he's still a warrior,
Yeah.
Him and Pat and all those guys.
And I appreciate you, not being a self-aggrandizing douchebag and sharing all this stuff with me and these nice people. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your service.
Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And oh yeah, by the way, thank you for this Ignis Lux coffee. That's very delicious, by the way. Thank you.
All right. So sales and marketing are not his strong suit, but
I'm trying.
All of these podcasts are, in fact, brought to you by the good people at Ignis Lux Coffee, which beautiful Bennett just roasted these bags a couple of days ago. If you guys have not started following Mr. Zillig online, how do they find you?
They can find me at CoryZillig.com. That is my author website. They can also find me at the site Midwest.com. That is our website for the training facility. So that's the site Midwest.com and CoryZillig.com.
You got an Instagram?
I do. When you said that marketing and social media stuff is not my strong suit, you were correct.
I know.
And that is, hopefully that's changed. Everybody's got to learn new stuff. That's going to be new for me to learn, and it'll get a lot better.
It's okay. You can't be good at everything. Actually, you were on our podcast many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Drew, can you link it in the show notes for people to find? And I think you have definitely learned a ton. Why I'm saying that is it's a way for people to find you and maybe point you. So some folks are into that. What's your thing on Instagram?
Oh, just Cory Zillig. It should just be
Your name. Can you spell it?
CoryZillig. That's CoryZillig.
You got a lot of facial expressions. You're kind of like freaking me out a little bit.
I'm just trying to, you know, sales and marketing were like a, you know, I need to work on it, so I'm working on it.
Do me a favor, sign our board over here. Big son of a buck. It's fun to watch where people sign that. My sister signed right dead center, said, "Look at me." Thanks, homie.
Of course.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com. Well, man, that was a very cool conversation. I'm honored to have got to spend that time here in the Higher Line studio with Mr. Zillig. Glad to call him friend, and I do hope that you check out his upcoming book and do check out the site for training opportunities, especially if you are in the law enforcement and military community. As always, be well. Don't be dickheads, and remember to walk that higher line. Bye now.